All right, hopefully you can see me okay. Have you ever noticed at some point in your life, maybe it's going on now or it's happened in the future, where you repeat a pattern? Whether it's you're attracted to a similar type of person, or you find yourself doing the same things you've done in the past. Excuse me one second. Re-angle this. Okay. Have you ever noticed that, like, these same things keep happening? And for me in the past, it's manifested itself in going for a woman who is clearly either not interested or not aligned, or there's an element of chase that's going on, where it's like this push-pull dynamic, this anxious attachment with an avoidant attachment. There's that dynamic, that roller coaster, that emotional roller coaster of being addicted to that high of the conflict, of the tension. And while there might be some fun tension in that, and there might be some fun moments in that, unless you have two conscious people, it's not going to make for a very smooth ride. And so I see this in a lot of people, and I'm glad I'm not the only one, first off. But what I've realized through listening to Tony Robbins talk is that this is a pattern playing out. And until we're consciously aware of the pattern and the story attached to that pattern, that I am not, whatever it is, I am not worthy of love, or whatever you're trying to find in that pattern. For a lot of people, but I'll speak for myself, it's comfort and certainty in the fact that it's uncertain, if that makes any sense. And there's this familiarity that I've had with my particular pattern, conditioned response. And so when we look at our minds like a computer, and the beliefs we have as programs running, right? Now bear with me for 1 second here. And then we zoom out and look from above and say, oh shit, I always do this when this happens. Like for me, for example, I was working on creating my business offer this morning, and immediately like these limiting beliefs started coming in, boop, 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 boop. And then I was like, oh no, I have to change my subconscious belief system. Now I have to journal. Now I'm gonna look on Instagram and scroll. There's this discomfort being triggered by that event, right? And so the same thing happens in our day-to-day lives that a lot of times, at least I found, that I've been unconscious of. And so what I was thinking about doing was literally listing out all the things, like all the programs that I'm aware of that are running, right? Well, what are my thoughts on this? What do I typically do with this? With money? How do I spend my money? How do I typically relate to money? What's my relationship with money? What is my relationship with intimacy? And how do I express that? When do I push away? And becoming aware of the stories we tell ourselves, because whether or not the event is real or imaginary, we can imagine it, believe that it's real, and then act out that situation based on that false reality. You know, I've had that happen a lot. I've worked on it quite a bit, but I used to get very jealous over just like very what's the word? Small things that really didn't make a difference. Like very like little things that really had no meaning except the meaning that I attributed to. And I noticed it coming up lately too, which is interesting. Like, oh shit, what is this? Could mean this about this person. What if they're having a thing together? Oh, well then what does that mean about myself? That must mean, blah, blah. And that's how it typically happens. Is like this thread that unwinds. And when you trace it back, you're like, oh no, this is completely illogical. And then also reminding yourself, and this is what I thought about earlier, if this were to be true, what's the worst that could happen? And then letting things play out that way. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I think the really the core message about this whole thing is what I'm getting at is being self-aware of the stories playing out. And once you become aware of the stories, then you're in a position to change them and create new ones that are more empowering. Like, oh, actually, I don't want to tolerate this in my life anymore. I now believe this because I'm worthy of this. And having that confidence to believe that, and that self-esteem is derived from doing the hard things, esteem of self, out of doing the things you say you're going to do and pushing against that. One thing Tony Robbins mentioned in this Theo Von podcast was how Steph Curry is like the highest, has made the most 3-point shots out of any player in history, right? And he did the calculations in the podcast, the rough calculations that Steph's is shot like 2.5 million 3-point shots, something like insane, right? But he's only made like 3,000 in the NBA, 3,000 something in the NBA, which makes him the number one player, right? So he's shot like a million, maybe it was 100,000. I don't know what it was. It was a crazy number. He's shot a crazy number of times in order to then make it a very small percentage of that cumulative total. But that puts him at the top, right? And so it's the work that we do in private, like this, like with the work we do in analyzing, assessing our belief systems and actively changing them, that then we see in public, that then manifests into our actual reality. So that's what I've been thinking about today. Hopefully that's been of some help. As I mentioned, I am working on an offer, a fitness program offer. And I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know about this. I'm targeting women. Like, I don't know. And then I started talking to some women at work about it. And they were really excited and thought it was a really cool idea. And so it's like, before you try to stop yourself, before you let your mind control you instead of controlling it, really take pause, assess, am I coming at this from the right angle? Or do I need sleep? Do I need to regulate myself? Whatever the case is, change your story, change your life. And I'll see you in the next video.